At the start of this movie, we are greeted with a familiar scene, but it's so realistic, it's astonishing. Groups of animals of what seems to be every species in Africa travel across the land to Pride Rock, all aware of the prince's birth. Rafiki meets and christens Simba. All the animals celebrate the future king. A little mouse has no clue he's about to cross paths with Scar, a fierce and resentful lion. Brother to Mufasa, but far from royalty. Zazu tells him Mufasa wants to see him, but Scar isn't so eager to quickly obey orders. Simba's arrival means that Scar won't get the opportunity to rule, so he didn't feel very much up to attending the ceremony. Mufasa makes it clear that he expects Scar to respect him and Simba, when he's king, but Scar is dismissive. Zazu believes Scar should have been expelled from the Pride Lands a long time ago, but Mufasa couldn't do that to his own brother. Zazu makes him feel better by telling him about his cousin, who thought he was a woodpecker, and his brain just couldn't stand up to all the constant head-banging. Rafiki, with the help of some grub, makes a picture of Simba. Simba wakes up his dad so they can go on patrol together. First, Mufasa shows him their entire kingdom. He says time as a ruler rises and falls like the sun, and it's only a matter of time until the sun rises with him, as the ruler. He says while the land belongs to no one, a true king can protect it and rule with nature's balance, respecting all the creatures and the natural way of life. When living beings pass away, their bodies become the grass, and then the prey eats the grass, thus is the circle of life. While Zazu gabs his mouth about cheetahs never prospering, Simba practices his stalk and pounce on him. When Zazu reports a hyena sighting, Mufasa rushes off to help Sarabi and the others, ordering Simba to go home, with the other cubs. He is temporarily distracted by a bug, and encounters Scar, who gives him some advice, but then suggests he go home, because he refuses to babysit. Simba scoffs because he's in line to be king. He doesn't need a babysitter, and someday he'll be giving Scar orders. He thinks it's weird, but he has no idea just how weird Scar feels about it. He brings up the dark lands and elephant graveyard that they've all seen, but reminds Simba not to go there, for his own safety. Simba immediately tells Nala he wants her to come with him to the water hole. Once they're given permission to leave with Zazu, Simba tells her what he's really up to. Nala is hesitant to go, but he doesn't think it could be that dangerous if all the adults have seen it and survived. He longs for adventure, so Nala agrees, but first, they have to figure out how to ditch the dodo. In conversation, Zazu tells them they're betrothed, but Simba says he doesn't have to do that, or anything else that's expected of him, because he's in line to be king. In the midst of their rebellious fun, they manage to lose Zazu. Nala finds it ridiculously easy to pin Simba. He distracts her with their discovery of the elephant graveyard. It's only a few minutes until they encounter dangerous enemies of the Pride. They don't care that Simba is the future king, and he's defenseless against them. Zazu does his best to stop the hyenas from attacking, and starting a war. Shensi can't resist attempting to take the life of Mufasa's bloodline, knowing it's what Scar would want her to do. Simba gives his best roar, but it only gets him laughed at. The second roar is much more terrifying, but it's his father, coming to rescue him. Mufasa threatens Shensi if she ever comes near Simba again. She quickly promises she will never again come near him. On the way home, Mufasa knows he must teach his son a lesson. Simba understands he's much smaller than his father. Mufasa tells Simba he endangered the Pride by deliberately disobeying him. He admits that he was scared he might lose him, which teaches Simba that everyone gets scared sometimes, and they have to respect boundaries. Mufasa tells him the kings of the past will guide him, and so will he, even after he's gone. The hyenas are spiteful toward Mufasa. Scar returns, and criticizes them for losing the cubs after he sent them their way. He tells them that if they help him overthrow Mufasa, he'll share the Pride lands with them. They doubt his ability, but Scar is quite persuasive, describing what it would be like for them to live in a land of plenty. Scar walks and talks alone with Simba. He tells him his very own father used to come here to practice his roar, and if Simba brings it out, his father will be so proud that he'll forget all about his big mistake. Simba starts practicing, but before he knows it, there's a stampede of wildebeest running through the cavern. Scar tells Mufasa about Simba's predicament, knowing it's far too late to save him. Mufasa does manage to save Simba, but when he counts on his brother Scar to save him, it costs him his life. Simba watches his father fall. When he lies by his side, Scar comes up to ask him what he's done, implying that this is Simba's fault. He didn't know this would happen, but he can't deny this was his fault, so he asks Scar what he should do. He tells him to run away, and never come back. In Simba's traumatized state, he turns around and runs away from his father's body. Shensi tells the other two to make sure Simba is gone to heaven. They don't go all the way down there to check, so they agree to tell her he is, without confirming. He survived the fall, although he has no idea what future awaits him. Scar goes to Pride Rock, and apologizes for failing to get to the cavern in time to save Mufasa or Simba. He announces that with a heavy heart, he will be assuming the throne. Although, he won't be able to do it alone, so he brings in the hyenas. Timon and Pumbaa see the vultures feeding on something and chase the birds away. Discovering that it is a lion cub makes them nervous, but they quickly agree to keep it. While deciding on a name, Simba asks what they're doing. They tell him they saved his life, but Simba says it doesn't matter. The two are shocked that a little lion cub could have such a bleak outlook on life, and they try to ask what his deal is. He says he did something terrible, but Timon says everyone makes mistakes. Pumbaa says anyone's goal should be to change the future for the better, by learning what they can from the past. When the world turns its back on you, turn your back on the world, to embrace what's next. He tells him to repeat after him, Hakuna Matata. Simba's reaction is dull, and Pumbaa says most people are way more enthusiastic when they tell them about it. During their well-known Hakuna Matata song, they admit that Pumbaa was pretty much an outcast for his stinky farts. They show Simba where they live, and introduce him to their friends. Their friends are nervous, and point out that he's a lion. Proving their point, Simba asks for some antelope or zebra. They show him the grub, emphasizing its delicious crunchiness. Simba tries a slimy one and admits he likes it. Years later, Simba is fully grown, and so is Nala, back in the Pride Lands. Scar is chasing away the prey by overhunting. Sarabi calls him selfish, and knows this is no way to rule the land. She declines his invitation to eat by his side and be his queen, so he says from now on, the lions eat after the hyenas, and they don't leave much. Nala sneaks away, determined to find help, even though Zazu thinks it's a terrible idea. He helps distract Scar moments before he finds her hiding. Her mother sees her escape, silently wishing her luck. Simba plays with butterflies, scaring an antelope. He tries to explain why he's nervous, saying that Simba is different from other lions, not like a real lion. Simba doesn't get it, so Timon tries to explain that he's prey, and probably won't want to hang out with a carnivore. Simba asks if he's talking about the circle of life, but Timon and Pumbaa say that's not it at all. Life is more like a line, and once you reach the inevitable end, that's it. Simba asks if they're sure it's not a circle, and Pumbaa says of course they're sure. If that was true, that'd mean that everything he does affects another living thing, but that's clearly not the case. They burst out laughing when Simba tries to tell them about the kings from the past, watching them from the stars. When Simba walks away, they blame each other for laughing at his beliefs. We get a nice little detour, showing just how connected all living creatures are. Fate finds a way to deliver Simba's hair to Rafiki, who celebrates that he's alive. Timon and Pumbaa get a group of followers to prance and sing along with them, but their party is cut short when Nala jumps out of the brush to eliminate them. Timon and Pumbaa scream, running for their lives before Simba intervenes. They fight aggressively before Simba recognizes her. She still manages to pin him, all these years later. Nala asks where he's been, but Simba doesn't know how to say it. He introduces Timon and Pumbaa, inviting her to stay a while. She immediately tells him they have to get back to Pride Rock, and that he should take his rightful place as king. He's hesitant, but Nala agrees to stay for a while, admiring the place where Simba spent all these years. He knows there's so much to tell her, but he's afraid she would hate him if she knew the truth of what he'd done. She knows something is up, and asks why he didn't come home if he's been alive all these years. He tells her he can't ever go back, even though the Pride Lands are dying. Scar is king now. She tries to tell him the past doesn't matter, but Simba just tells her she has no idea what he's been through. Nala says she came here looking for help, but it must have been a mistake. She leaves, and Simba is left alone with his thoughts. Rafiki finds him and tells him he held him as a cub, and knows his father. He says Mufasa is alive, and encourages Simba to keep up. At first, Simba doesn't see his father within himself, but then he does, and hears Mufasa speak to him from the clouds. He says he's never left him, and never will. Simba must remember who he is and take his rightful place in the circle of life. Rafiki asks Simba who he is, and he replies by saying he is Simba, son of Mufasa, and rightful king of the Pride Lands. Simba finds Nala on the way home, encouraging her to hurry. She makes it clear that she will stand by his side and fight. Timon and Pumbaa show up too, admitting that the meaningless line of life curves a little bit, and they care about him. They ask how he plans on getting past the guards, and he implies that he needs them to do something quite risky. Pumbaa throws out juicy suggestions for prey, but they just stare at him until he understands what they're implying. The hyenas don't hesitate very long to give chase, allowing Nala and Simba to pass. Rafiki finds his staff for making stuff happen. Scar pressures Sarabi to be his queen and argues that he's a better, more compassionate king than even Mufasa was, and starts fighting with her when she disagrees. Suddenly, Simba appears, demanding he leaves his mother alone. Simba wants one good reason not to rip Scar to pieces, and Scar's reason is the hyenas. The women in the pride support Simba, telling Scar they believe his reign is over now. Simba says it's up to him to stand down or fight. Scar asks if it all must come down to violence, and brings up the past, insinuating that Simba directly eliminated Mufasa. Simba admits he did. Sarabi doesn't believe it, but Simba says it was an accident, and he's not a murderer like Scar claims. Scar portrays him as a menace, and it messes with Simba's head. He doubts whether he deserves forgiveness or the throne. Scar tells him this scene looks awfully familiar, and admits to Simba that this is exactly what he did to Mufasa. The lions hear the exchange, and when Simba calls Scar the murderer, the fighting starts. Timon and Pumbaa avoid the fighting, but encounter the hyenas again. When they call Pumbaa chubby, he says while he may run from hyenas, he will always fight a bully. Timon is proud of him for getting it out of his system. Nala and Shensi have it out, now that they're more evenly matched and Nala isn't a cub anymore. Even Zazu wants to fight and Rafiki helps him. Nala is fighting against more than just Shensi, but she still manages to fight them all off. Scar notices the fight isn't going in their favor, and runs away. With Simba following him, he climbs to the top of Pride Rock. Simba says he isn't going to eliminate him, so Scar wonders what he would have him do. Simba tells him to run away, and never return. Scar acts as though he will, but he attacks Simba. They fight, until Scar falls from an incredible height. The fall doesn't eliminate him, but the hyenas overheard what he told Simba. That they were disgusting, revolting creatures that he planned to eliminate. They don't spare him. The lions of Pride Rock gather together in the rain, letting their victory sink in. Rafiki pets Simba fondly and watches as he walks up to the edge of Pride Rock, where his father once stood. Mufasa's voice tells him to remember, and he roars a majestic roar. Years later, King Simba is hosting a ceremony with his queen Nala, in honor of their newborn cub.